I would really much like to shake their hand and say how much they inspire me to create every day. Hello, lovely. This is Julia Badow, and I'm an abstract artist from Berlin, living in Seoul, South Korea. When it comes to museums and gallery openings, I'm not going nearly as much as I would love to, but over the years I have come to love some of the following artists I want to introduce to you. Number one is probably no surprise to anyone, Van Gogh. During his lifetime, he has been incredibly prolific, despite only ever selling one painting. He was supported by his brother. He experimented a lot with new pigments that didn't stand the test of time, but I love his ferociousness, the emotional impact his paintings have, the texture, the way he sees light, and the way he captures that vision for everyone else to see is just... He was so much ahead of his time. There's, of course, the very sad story about his life I'm not going to get into, but I have watched several of his biopics, and anytime there's an exhibition near me, I make it a point to go. Frida Kahlo is another one of those painters that just left me deeply impressed. Most of the artists I'm talking about I admire deeply, although the paintings I don't like as much. It's more about the mindset for me and how they worked as an artist than the work they created itself. So while I don't love the paintings Frida Kahlo created, I absolutely am stunned how she created with her body being broken. Not to get discouraged by something like that, not losing the will to create, but instead using the time and using it, I don't want to say productively just because she didn't do it to be productive, but probably so she doesn't get bored. Yet she used that time in a way that helped her probably recover faster than if she would have just been very depressed and stared at the wall. There's so much dedication and willpower behind that. I'm absolutely in awe. Another one is Monet. I was lucky enough when I went to Paris to see the original, the big water lily paintings. Simply stunning. The way he used color, the way he saw his garden and his sanctuary and was able to convey that imagery onto canvas. There are no words. If you ever get the chance to see his originals, I can recommend 100%. Also, I love how big those paintings were. The entire orangery, the place where his paintings are exhibited, was created for those paintings specifically. The way they go around the room, it's mind-boggling to me how these artists were able to create such brilliance and persevere through so many hardships, and their legacy to be able to survive to this day and still impress. Because nowadays people, we see a lot of things and we are not easily impressed anymore, and yet I would really much like to shake their hand and say how much they inspire me to create every day. Now, the next artist I know next to nothing about. The first time I heard her name was somebody suggesting my paintings might be inspired by her, which is Jean-Michel. I looked her up, I went on Pinterest, and the sheer wildness of her application on canvas is astonishing. But apart from her using abstract and vivid colors, I don't see much of a crossover, unless you count that we're both female artists. Jean-Michel works big and expressive. I don't know anything about her private life. If there is a movie about her, I haven't found it yet. I use my sketchbook sometimes to recreate pieces I see online, and I've tried creating something similar to her work, and it turns out completely different, yet the colors she uses teach me so much because I naturally wouldn't gravitate towards those. So I'm learning through other people's color palettes a lot about what I can then use in my own work. Before we go to the final artist I want to introduce to you, honorary mention is Marilyn Minter. A few weeks ago, she had an exhibition in Seoul and I was able to see her talk. And while again, her paintings are not something I would hang myself, hearing her talk, hearing her thought process about how she goes about not only painting but also working within the art world was deeply inspiring. One of the things she said was, I hope my viewers tolerate complexity, because her work is about beauty, glamour, femininity, yet so much more. And I would have loved to rephrase it into something like, I hope my viewers appreciate complexity. And she's somebody who rather asks for forgiveness than for permission. She says she likes to be obscure and mysterious, and I can relate to that. She also advised to do it differently than everyone else at the highest quality, go where nobody has gone before, which I think is brilliant advice and very hard to follow advice. So what I learned from that talk and from her was make it pretty, make people want to watch, give them what they want, but in a way they didn't expect. And my personal favorite among all the artists I've listed so far is Jean-Michel. I learned about him in art university. A friend of mine introduced his movie Basquiat to me. I have never heard of him before, and That movie is now one of my absolute favorites. Whenever I'm in a rut and don't feel like painting, or if I get overprecious with my work, I always put that movie on, especially this scene where he gets his first gallery contract and works in the basement, and it immediately makes me want to get out my colors and paint. And it's not about the work he creates. I have seen his work several times in real life. I've been to many exhibitions. I do not like his work. It doesn't look nice to me. It's not my kind of aesthetic yet. The way he works, his mindset about his own works. He would walk barefoot across his canvas. I think, like Jackson Pollock, there's cigarette stumps embedded within the paint. He wasn't precious. He would cross things out. He would paint things over. Every time I feel too careful with my paintings or too precious, I like to think back of how he would have approached painting and how little respect he had for his own work. His way of working gives me the freedom to let go of perfectionism. And that's a huge one for me. I love watching movies about artists. Yes, they're mostly sad and narcissistic, tragic even, and yet I love every scene where we get to see them paint, where we get to see them receive recognition, where we get to see them handle setbacks. I haven't nearly watched enough movies yet, so if you have any recommendations, please drop them below. Of course, there are many more artists I know about, yet they didn't quite make the cut because these impressed me the most and inform my work the most. If you think I've forgotten somebody, please let me know, and I will happily deep dive into any artist biographies, movies you can tell me about. Please share this video with anyone who would appreciate art and artists, and I'd love to see you in the next one. Let's make the world a more colorful place, one painting at a time. See you next time.